have the good fortune of having Bob Heil K9EID as our guest speaker. Bob was first licensed in 1956, which is foundation to his career in sound reinforcement industry, as well as being high quality articulate audio to amateur radio. As a substitute player of the Wurlitzer Theater organ at the St. Louis Fox Theater at the age of 15, Bob was taught how to mentally dissect what one hears by the world-renowned organist and comedian Stan Kahn. Little did he realize that learning to listen would be so important later in his career when he began designing and building large concert sound systems for some of the world's leading groups, starting with WB6 ACU and the James Gang. He went on to build mega KW systems for artists such as the Grateful Dead, The Who, ZZ Top, Humble Pie, Jay Giles, and Peter Frampton, just to name a few. Bob's passion for sound led him to improved amateur radio substandard microphones and ushered him into the market with his new line of tailored response microphones that improved speech articulation. So please welcome Bob Heil. Bob, over to you, sir.
All righty. Well, it's sure nice to be with you. I love spending time with the clubs. We in this particular pandemic, it really is interesting what we're all doing to make things better. And one of the things that I have been doing is doing a lot of these. I'm doing 2 and 3 clubs a week, as well as Ham Nation on Wednesday night. One of the things we're doing on Ham Nation that's very interesting is we're having doctors, hams that are in the field, and we'll have another one on tomorrow night. Plus, we're spotlighting clubs, so it's been a really fun thing and worthwhile because we have time and we need to let everybody know what's happening. Well, I have some things here tonight. Let me get this all started for you. I think you'll enjoy most of what's going to happen, and I do hope that you learn something from some of this stuff, because radio has just absolutely been it's been my passion since I was 15 years old. And kind of right along with it, I was the organist at the Fox in St. Louis, and a lot of people say, what has that got to do with it? It has a lot to do with it because I learned how to listen. Listening is a mental process, and a lot of people don't listen. They only hear. And we're going to get into this because the studies are there. And what I like to let everybody know in the beginning, that we're talking about the science here. This isn't a product. This isn't a dream. This isn't a commercial. It is a science of what Bell Labs learned about how our ears work back in the 20s. And the enhancement objectives is that we want to break through pileups and control the frequency during a contest, and the focus available is on the transmitter power for maximum gain. Well, we have to have great fidelity when you want it, but not always, and that's what we'll get into tonight. And of course, we also want to look good. Those are a couple of microphones out of our custom shop. We have a custom shop in-house. The one on the left is a Charlie Daniels microphone, and the one on the right is Carrie Underwood. We're doing great things for some of those people. The pattern of a microphone is all important, and it's never talked about. It's never talked about. And we use arrays of antennas to create a directional pattern to enhance signal-to-noise ratio. Why don't they do that for microphones? Well, the microphones that most of you will get when you buy a transceiver it's matching. Well, that only means it's painted the same color. We'll get into that later. But we need a pattern on that microphone, things you never hear about. the importance of power focus. Where is your power? What frequency? And the right microphone element that delivers to your voice the same advantage is yielded by a Yagi compared to a dipole. And you want to restrict the bandwidth of your transmitted single sideband station, because the narrower the slot, the more power you can have. And by definition, it makes you louder on the other end of the pileup, and that's what sometimes it's all about. And so many people will say, well, I just want it all flat, and I hear flat. Well, I am here to tell you that nobody hears flat. Nobody. And they learned that a very, very interesting way back in the 20s when the telephone system was first done. And what happened there, a little demo that means a lot to you. What happened was they had 2 wires, East Coast all the way to the West Coast. And every 50 miles or so, they had a relay station that held the frequency up, held the level up. So they knew that when it got out there, it's exactly what went in. When they turned on the system, this is what they heard. Why is it so hard to understand? Everything was right. Huh. So they put Dr. Munson on the case. Look what they figured out. Let me get this back so you can understand better what I'm saying. You understand there. And that's a great demonstration of what happens when you have good articulation. Notice on the chart, they discovered that your ears are certainly not flat. No one. We all hear pretty much the same. So we end up with a situation of what do you have to do to make things articulate? And you also notice that up at the top, over 100 dB, it's almost flat. So when you don't like these kids that roll up beside you in their car and they're about to blast you out, they only do it because they can hear all the cymbals. They can hear all the mid-range guitars and vocals. They can hear all the bass because it's almost flat. Listening down at other levels, look what happens. And so you miss so much. And I picked up on it. I was very blessed. Paul Klipsch took me under his wing and taught me a lot of things. And one of the things was about articulation. So one of the things we did early on when I got into the amateur radio market was to have a microphone element that would make the 2 to 3K louder than the rest, because Fletcher and Munson told us they discovered that between 2 and 3K is where the maximum articulation is. And once again, if I take 2K out, we're back to flat. It's very difficult to understand, especially if I lower my level a little bit. And what we need articulation. Listen to the difference. So much easier to understand. And that's what we brought to the amateur radio market in 1982. I built an equalizer. It was the first equalizer that was ever brought to the market. And it got the cover award for QST in 1982, July. And then we started building the microphone elements. And it was so wonderful that it happened at a time we really needed it, because a lot of guys were having a lot of trouble with their matching microphones. And it just didn't play. Well, we figured it out. we call it the DX Dream Machine, the HC7. Look at the response. Where is all of my power focus? It's all right there, right where it should be, from 2 to 3K, where Dr. Fletcher and Munson figured out that the human needed that 2 to 3K, just as I demonstrated for you. So that's all very important. All of our products has very high articulation because the elements have a 10 dB rise between 2 and 3K. And then I roll off underneath 600. We don't need anything below 600 hertz. And it just really cleans things up. Oh yes, if you're in a rag chew and you're 30/9, you might want to put a little low end in it. And we have things to do that too. But 1985, I'd come back. I was out of the market. I was out of ham radio for many years. I was on the road with all of my buddies doing their audio and making that good for people to hear. But I came back in the in 1985, the Navassa Island DXpedition asked me to build them a microphone on a headset that could use. Well, this was a real big step. Nobody had been doing anything like this. They weren't paying attention. They weren't listening. But the BM10 was very lightweight. We still build it, and all the parts are available. Everything that we make is, we want to make it available if you have any problems. But the major broadcasters, they really got into some of the things we were doing, especially with our PR40. Sirius Radio dumped all of their RE20s, and it's just such a blessing to me to see that ham radio taught me how to do all this. And the PR40, that was done using antenna. It was done by using antenna theory. Joe Walsh, one of my best friends. We've been friends since, gosh, back in the James Gang day of the late 60s. But along about 2006, he set me down at his kitchen table and said, you got to do something for me. I said, what's that? He said, you got to make me a microphone that's very articulate. And he said, you remember that big antenna you had? Man, when you turned that around, I couldn't hear you. Why can't you do that to the microphone? Well, nobody really did anything significant in all. I don't care if it's Shure. I don't care if it's Neumann. It doesn't make any difference. They don't know how to listen. Obviously, I don't wear their engineers. It drove me nuts. Joe said, you got to do something. And so we did. Put our ears together. And what became of it was the darling of the broadcasters. And it's creeped into ham radio also, because a lot of guys like a nice big full signal. Not everybody wants a contest signal. But there it is. It is the microphone. Well, how does it work? How does it work? I'll give you a little demonstration about that microphone. And again, all of this stuff was designed by me. I'm not an engineer. I'm a ham. And it's all done with things I learned years back. I'm going to change mics. Okay, now you never know through all of the Zooms and all of the things we do how much of it ever comes to being, but the microphone is much fuller. It's the only dynamic that goes 28 hertz on the bottom to 18K on the top. But the best part is from 2 to 3K, it has a little rise. You don't have to equalize it. That's why the broadcasters went to it with Shure EV or whatever, no matter difference. You got to equalize them. They can't just plug it in. Well, this they do. But here's the biggie. We wanted a microphone that had great rejection. This microphone is the only dynamic that has 40 dB of rear rejection. When I talk in the back of it, you won't hear me. Oh, it still works, but it's 40 dB down. And that's wonderful, especially for the guys out on the stages where they have a bunch of monitors and nonsense coming back at them. They're 40 down. And the broadcasters love it because usually a DJ or a host is sitting in front of a plate glass window that the producer's behind, and the sound of his voice goes straight into that glass and comes straight back. Well, we don't care because we can knock that out by 40 dB. How's that work? How'd I do that? Well, Joe said, like the big antenna. Well, the big antenna was all about phasing. What I did, every microphone today have 4 little holes around here, 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 and here. And that's what they want to get the rear rejection into. It's not enough. It's not enough. So what I did is I opened the entire bottom of this large diaphragm. That's another thing. We're the only people that have built an 1.5 inch diaphragm, and it works. Sure failed. They tried to do it on their SM7 and they failed. And so and I know that because I knew the engineer very, very well. And he was telling me he always comes by our booth at the AES and the NAMM show. How'd you do that? Well, I did it by listening to my theories of antenna. And we're able to have all of the low end, the mids, and the highs come up through what I call a collection tube. It's just a hard rubber mount into the bottom. And what do we end up with? 40 dB. Well, I want to take a minute to talk about my favorite subject. I wish we had hours. It really bugs me that there isn't more talked about this. Phasing is so important. I'm going to change microphones again. Okie dokie. Let me make sure I get the gain right. This is a PR22. Notice and listen how crisp the mid-range are. It's beautiful, and it's flat. There's no EQ on this. I built this for a guy by the name of Paul Rogers of Bad Company. He wanted a microphone that was very articulate, but they didn't have to equalize it. He said, a lot of my sound men don't know how to do it. So I did PR22, and it's become very popular. I use it on ham radio most of the time because I don't have to do anything. Plug it in and it goes. Okay, I'm giving you a little time to listen to these. Now, let's take another side step. If you had a 500 watt amplifier and you're not cutting the pileups because you got your matching microphone and it's all bassy and mushy and sounding like this, and it's like, well, ain't it great? No, it's not great. I can't understand you. So you go out and buy a kilowatt. Doubled your power. How many decibel do you gain? 3. That's it. Well, now, do you know how loud 3 dB is? Oh, Bill said it's really loud when I put on my kilowatt. Well, I got news for you. A lot of it has to do with they don't want to destroy your ego. I'm going to bring this microphone, well, I'm bringing them together. When I do, it's like doubling my power. I should get a camera on my meter over there to show you my VU meter. When I do this, here comes 3 dB, and it's going to get really loud, just so you know. 1, 2, 3. What? I'm going to take 3 dB away. 1, 2, 3. There is no difference. Well, there is, but only in a very controlled and echo chamber it'd have to be in a scientific situation for the human to detect 3 dB. This is all science. This isn't something that Bob Heil just screams about and tries to make everybody understand, because it's the science. You go listen, watch, read all of the things of Bell Labs in the 20s. They learned all of this stuff. I never hear of this, and it bugs me. This is what we should be seeing. Not all the political nonsense we have on our tests. Do something for us. Okay. Know about this, right? Well, here comes the good part. Not that that wasn't good, I mean, after all. What we have to think about is phasing. Phasing it's everything. Everything we touch in ham radio, it's all about phasing. Let me get this all set back up now. Okay. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to reverse the plug on this little gadget over here. And when I do this, I have these two microphones out of phase. They still work just fine. However, when I talk to both of them, what am I going to get? They're just 40 dB down or more, because they're out of phase. But there again, nobody is really showing us how that works. Let me get them both back in phase here. In fact, let me switch to the other microphone. Now, I wish we had hours. I told you it's my favorite subject. Why? Because everything we do on those things has to do with phasing. How does your notch filter work? When some guy rolls up beside you and you're trying to break through some pile of whatever, thing is, you got this big heterodyne. How does it work? When you turn the notch filter on, it takes that heterodyne out of phase, he's gone. So many things. Noise canceling headsets, even some of the equalization circuits. That's how we can reduce and notch out frequencies that we need in equalization units. How does a phase dipole work? There's so many things about that, and I never hear about it, and it makes me sad, because there's so much relying on things. You all have a Yagi, probably. How did Dr. Yagi, how did he figure that out? They didn't have computers. So what he did, mathematically, on a boom, he put a driven element. Then he figured out if he went up on that boom with a director, he could get 3 or 4 dB of gain. No power needed. But he also figured out if he made it longer and at the distance behind the driven, he could get 10, 15 dB because it's out of phase. And that's how your Yagi works. And so many things that we do today in amateur radio have things about phasing. And I should come back sometime. I have a whole deal, really good demos. I put up a pair of 75-meter dipoles in a phased array and a pair on 40 meters. And it was amazing. It cost me all of about 30 bucks. Because, I always thought, I hear all the big boys talk about their phase, this, I'm going, oh my God, it must cost $1 million. No, it cost about $30. And I get somewhere around 15 dB front to back on 75 meters. If I want to talk to my friends out in California, no problem. Talk to them. No problem at all. Because I cut out the whole eastern part just by phasing. And the $30 comes in the little, what is it, 43 foot of coax rolled up and put in a little plastic tub and buried. And you just switch it back and forth. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And I got a whole bunch of things on that. Maybe we'll come back and talk about that sometime. But I get into my favorite subjects, and oh boy. Well, we'll get back into some of the microphones. If you want high fidelity and articulation, the 781 is it. It's right now our most popular, if not the most popular microphone in all of ham radio. They are just flying out the door because they work really good. I rolled off that low end, a little more than an octave, and I brought in the top end a little bit, but I still have that. It has about 4 to 5 dB at around 2,000 to 3,000 cycles for articulation. And the 781 it's a dream. You don't want to forget your windscreen. A lot of people just kind of throw it aside, but it's very important, because if you don't have a windscreen, without it, your voice, the air goes down and causes that diaphragm to hit bottom. And if you say things like B's and P's and all that, P's and B's, but do that, you don't have it. P's and B's are calm. And you really need it. But be sure you get a good one. There's a lot of junk out there. They're just foam. It has to be acoustic foam. It has to be. And we have all of that available. We make it for all of the microphones, including others of ours, but very important. But then you got to worry about addressing a microphone. Oh, no, 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 no. I hear it so much, and it makes me so sad. Because I hear these guys that they're about 2 feet from their microphone. Well, Bill said I sound just fine. Yeah, but you sound like you're in a barrel. No, he said I'm fine. No, you're not. Because listen to this. Remember what I said about listening. This is a great demonstration for you. It's a fact. It's a piece of science. Every time you double the distance, you lose 6 dB. Think about that. How many kilowatt would you lose just by moving your microphone far away? And you're saying, well, Heil, you're full of crap. All I got to do is reach over here, turn up the gain. Really? Okay. We'll turn up the gain. Go ahead. Turn it up. What do you got? You have a bunch of echo. And that just drives anybody crazy. It's hard to understand. And as I bring it back, I not only get my gain back, but I have now brought back my transient response. And see, people don't talk about that. Well, you should. Transient response is very important. How fast the element can move back and forth from your voice. And it just all in general, you should never be more than 2 inches from a microphone. Never, ever. And there again, we don't read much about it. And that's why I do these things, to share with you some of the science that I was taught at an early age. I was on the air at the age of 15 with my Harvey Wells, 6 meters. I was a technician for 17 years because the bands were wide open in those days in 1956. And my Harvey Wells is still over there. I don't think, no, you can't see it. It's down underneath the 75A4. I still use it in the mornings. I'm on AM nets on 3885 every morning. And I use that, my ICO and Central Electronics and stuff like that. But anyway, the whole situation is that most of this stuff we don't hear about, and it bugs me. So that's why I'm doing it, is to try to help you guys learn a little bit more about the science of audio. And you then have to really look also into how you do learn it. I was on the air about 3 days, and I heard this awful signal. Oh my gosh, it was terrible on 6 meters because it was all AM. And next night I heard it again. I go, what is that? And I didn't know all kinds of buttons on the SX99. I turned this one that was a BFO, and just luckily, a voice popped out. It was that single sideband stuff that I had been reading in my new QST. It was just starting to make a little move up on 20 meters. This guy's in 6 meters. Whoa. And so I called him, and he come back. He was so thrilled. He says, nobody will talk to me. They can't understand me. And so every night I would meet this man, and he was building this rig. And I was his little beta tester, I guess. And at the same time, I'm 15 years old, I was playing the organ at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. That's how Bob Heil learned to listen. We had to tune and voice 4,000 or 5,000 pipes, 1 inch to 32 foot. And I learned how to tune and listen, not just tuning, but the harmonics between each. I was so blessed. But the man K0DGE said, well, you ought to come by and visit me at my work sometime. So I did. I had a very special driver's license at the age of 15 that I could drive to work because I lived in Marissa, Illinois. That was about 50 miles from the Fox. So in between one of the breaks at the Fox, I roll up in this address. What was it? KMOX radio. Who is the guy? It was Larry Burroughs, the chief engineer of CBS. He had taken this young kid under his wing, and oh man, what did I learn so much. I asked him, I said, man, would you build me one of those? No, I can't do that. Well, you built one for you? I'm going to teach you how to do. And he did. And there's where young Bob Heil got crazy about building things, and I still do. If you guys kept up on the pine board, there's the pine board. And I won't carry it up here, but there's a new power supply down here, 700 volt power supply. I'm building a final for the 5-watt pine board. It'll be up there. You'll all see it when we get going on Ham Nation. Just go to my website, heilsound.com, and down in the very, very bottom is pine board. There's probably 60 pages of all the diagrams and stuff. And anyway, I'm a building fool because of that. And I was one of the first 10, I didn't know this till much later, single sideband stations on 6 meters. And again, everything I have learned is either from that crazy pipe organ or ham radio. And I loved it when I was doing the many years on the road. I'd get these engineers come in from the arenas and stuff, and they'd say, well, where'd you go to college? What degree do you have? I didn't go to college. I barely made it out of high school. No. Where did you learn all this? I said, well, I learned it from ham radio. No, you're not listening. How did you learn ham radio? And I'd say, no, man, you were not listening. I learned everything I know how to build and listen from ham radio and voicing pipe organs. That's what got me where I am. And none of them understood it, but you and I do. We love to build. We're hams. But I guess the big move for me was when I came back into radio that I built this equalizer, and it was really fun. Here, I'll grab it. Nobody. That word equalization was not mentioned on your 520, your 101s, your whatevers. There wasn't anything. It was mic gain. That was it. And your matching microphone. See, none of those companies build their own microphone. How do I know that? Because I now work for them. this became a big deal. Thousands were built. I had to put the plant back to work. I closed the plant. We weren't building any sound systems. And I had to call some of the girls back, and we making our own printed circuit boards and metal and all that. And so I got back into ham radio big time, and it was really fun because I helped people. But one day, 1999, I get this letter from Dr. Inouye. Inouye Communications, Icom, the founder. He sent me a picture of his station. Remember the IC781, one of the great transceivers that was the contest delight back in those days. He had a picture of that in my gold line, and this. I was freaked out. I mean, this is the guy that started, owns, and president and CEO and everything else of Icom. He said, I'm thinking new product, new line of transceivers, and I want you to help with equalization. So think about this, from Pro 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way out to the 7300 and the 7610. It's all got that in it. Bass and treble. Dr. Hasegawa came to me the next year at Dayton. I want to do it better. So I designed the parametric EQ for all of the Yaesus from the 9000 all the way through. And I told him then, I said, but you'll have a problem. What the problem? I said, education. What you mean, education? I said, with a simple shelving bass and treble, I selected the frequency of what the bass would do. I select the frequency of what the treble. 160 cycles on the low end, plus or minus. 4K on the top end, plus or minus. With parametric EQ, which is marvelous, you don't have to. You had nine buttons, controls. You have bandwidth, you had the frequency, and plus or minus. And there's 3 of those. What's that? 9. So you can set the bandwidth, you can set whether you're going to notch it or plus it, and what frequency you want it. So it does get a little complicated. We finally had, they didn't do anything about it, so it's very confusing in the beginning. So our website's full of that. And you want to, if you have never done that, the website's really full of information. We have a whole sequence of all things ICOM, all things Elecraft, all things Kenwood, and it helps you set up your rigs. So that really is something I love to do and try to keep up on it. But the only situation we have today is, what about ICOM? Tremendous piece of technology, Icom, tremendous. But all of their rigs, from the one that's way back in the 701, back in the late 60s when they came aboard, all of their mic preamps are down in gain by at least 10 dB. And the reason is they won't, Dr. Inouye wants to use electrets. Well, sometimes electrets aren't very good. The quality, the audio quality is not that great, but it's matching. Everybody bought it and got sucked into it. And it's like, okay. He knew that I could do something a little better, and we did. So I came up with what we call the ICM element. It's an active element. It needs the phantom power that only Icom gives. It won't work on Kenwood. It won't work on Yaesu. It won't work on anything except Icom. And boy, does it work. And the ICM microphone is just absolutely wonderful. It's a $100 wonder for all the Icom users. But you can use on some of them, you can use some of our dynamics, but you got to crank the gain wide open. But there again, you just have to pay attention. But the ICM solves that. And that's a wonderful piece. But we also have Boomsets with IC elements in them. We make it either way, with a dynamic or with the IC. So it'll work on ICOM, or the other dynamic will work on Kenwood. But you really need to know how to do the DSP setup. And it depends on your voice characteristics. Also depends on the microphone. And what's your objectives? Are you a rag chewer? You never care about rag chewing? You just want to DX and go crazy all the time? Well, you have to learn what the optimum settings are while you listen to your own signal on a separate receiver. I don't like to use the monitor. I like to listen to another receiver, and that with a pair of headphones. And that way you'll know how your signal sounds. But here's a pretty good start for all Icoms with our ICM. Roll off that low end, about 3 dB, punch that treble up for about +4 or 5 for DX, about 2 or 3 for normal rag chew. That gives you beautiful articulation. I don't like compression. I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to use it, you think it works, Bill said it sounds fine, just keep it low, very low. And you can set it narrow, and it just really, really wakes up whoever's listening. This slide is very, very important, and it's on our website again, All Things Yaesu. The MP series, they're all a little difficult to set, but there you are. The menu 7-7, set that for 150 to 3100. But you have to set, there's where everybody makes a mistake with some of the Yaesus. You have to turn off that 4-4. You have to turn it off. It'll do crazy things. You don't need it. But then for the 2000 and 9000, now we're getting into the pieces of parametric. And you have 3 filters. You set the first filter at -8 at 200 cycles. You're rolling off that low end. EQ2 to -6 dB at 900. 3 at +8. There you're bringing up that articulation and so on. And it's all on our site. But then you got to talk about, what do you do with that microphone? We have all kinds of mic stands. We were the first people to bring booms to this industry. And what's really cool about it are, I call it the topless boom. It has a patent on it. It's a hollow channel, and you can peel that off. It just clips on the top of it. That's why we call it topless. You lay the cable down in that channel and then put the top back on it. And that way you don't have cables running all over the place. And that's our PL2T. And there are literally tens of thousands of those. I just can't believe how many of those have been sold in the last few years because of the broadcasters and the podcasters. We are pretty much the king of podcasters. PR40s, PR781s, they're just wonderful because the quality is so good. So we're very blessed by all of that. One other thing that you have to think about is a shock mount. You don't always need it, but otherwise you get a lot of rumble, and that's all transferred through your desk and your console, and we make the various shock mounts. What do you do for push to talk? Everybody's got a push to talk switch. You can buy them for $20. You can get on the internet and buy it for $10. Hi, what's crazy? You're crazy. Why are you doing that for $30? Because the dual foot switch has 2 switches. And what's really good about it is the red one, as you see, that plugs into the amplifier. So you key it up first, and then the black one plugs into the push to talk line of our cables. And so you now can control both of these, but at a different time. You certainly wouldn't want to have all of that exciter power and then turn the, oh boy. So that all takes care of that for you. And I think it's not very expensive. And I'm really, really proud of the hand switch. I built that one day sitting here in the lab. I took a piece of just, you know, the white stuff package that you get. And I carved that out and I put one of the Carling switches in it. And I shaped it like a gun. One of my good friends said, you should have called it the 38 Special. It's so comfortable. And even some of the big contesters use it. And it, again, these are things that I discover in my own world. And I'm here every day. And then I go, well, wait a minute, you know, this would be really cool. Really cool. So we make products out of it. And that's how our whole ham radio thing started. It's how this started. I had a 520. It was my new radio. And what happened to my great Art Collins audio that I left 12 years ago? Well, because they didn't have any equalization. And the microphones were mushy. They weren't communications microphones. They fooled everybody. They didn't fool me. I did something about it. But I have a lot of fun here. There's some of the other things I do. You'll notice over on that side, that's all my early stuff. Mosley receiver, that's an interesting thing. A lot of people, they don't know or didn't know that Mosley built a receiver. And that was 1962. I was playing the organ across the street from the Mosley plant. I was there 6 nights a week. Had a pipe organ I had built in that restaurant. And I'd usually, once a month, I'd stop in to see Mosley. And I'd go 1 month and Carl's wiring a receiver. What are you doing? Oh, we bought this design from a man and we're going to put it on the market. They built about 200 of them. It is absolutely a marvelous AM receiver. It uses 7 tubes, all the same, 6 AW8s. And it has such great articulation. That's why I like it. It's so clean and crisp. And it's hard to see, but on the all the way over is my ICO 720 with one of the hi-fi modulators with the EL34s in it. Just gorgeous, gorgeous sound. And down below, it's hard to see, but I have a broadcast strip, the Symmetrics 528E. Most every broadcast station in the world has Symmetrics 528Es. And so the signal's great, and I drive a pair of 3500s. That's my AM setup. And then the central electronics. I built that as I was 18 years old. But I just have so much fun with all this stuff. But the real fun for me is getting to be with you. I am not making that up. I just love to share all this stuff because a lot of it's not being shared. And back some years ago, I wrote a handbook. I didn't write it. I compiled it. And what I mean by that is the handbooks you see today, oh my God, come on. You got to be a 3rd-degree engineer. You don't understand half the stuff that's on it. But what I did is I let me find a couple of things here. I used a lot of these ideas that came from my good mentors, one of them being the CBS engineer. You know, where can you see a book today to teach you how to wind a coil, to use a Greenlee punch, stuff like that. It's just chock full of that. And of course, great chapter on audio with the Fletcher Munson curve and all that kind of stuff. So this is a big deal. And as I say, I was really happy to share all of that. It's not my ideas. these are things that have been around forever. And when you go see get a hold of the books today, you got to be a scientist. We don't want to be scientists. We're amateur radio operators. We have fun, but we need to have a little bit of something. And so we do, you know, like I said, my soldering iron is always right there. And I'm always building something. Silly as it is, nah, it's not silly. But I enjoy all this stuff. And this is a new studio for me. We've been down in the Ozarks. Well, this is our home. We're in Belleville, Illinois. We're about 15 miles straight east of the Great Arch of downtown St. Louis. Our plant is about 5 miles up the road, closer to the Arch, just right across in Fairview Heights, Illinois. But this house has been here since Sarah was here in 84. Yeah, in 84. I joined her in 96. But about 10 years ago, we bought some property down in the Ozarks. Her mother had moved back there and she had some cousins. So for a second home, but I have 5.5 acres. And I want to come back and tell you about antennas. Oh my gosh, it was great with all these phased arrays and things. And as I say, it didn't cost any money, very little. I loved it, but we moved back here the first of the year, just getting older, and just kind of looking down the line. But I'm in good shape. I'll be 80 in October. I know I look like I'm 50 and act like I'm 12, but that's okay. It's okay. I still love it, and I continue on, and we're just having way too much fun. Do you guys have any questions we can answer or talk about? Anything?
I'm sure we have some questions. A couple of people have asked if there was a Q&A session. So Scott, KB4 KBS, you'd asked if there was going to be a Q&A. Why don't you kick it off?
Dr. Heil, are you able to hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tee it up, let you knock it out of the park. All the young kids these days love to grab the microphone like you have and put their claw around it right up there by the snow cone and block off the back end of it. And I'd like you to explain why that's such a bad idea.
Thank you. It's one of the reasons that Heil Sound has become the microphone for the entertainers. It drives me crazy when you see them, what we call cupping. It drives me nuts. But there's only one thing about it. Doesn't change with my microphone. Why? Well, with Shure, I keep picking on them because they are not the ultimate. They've been there longer than everybody else. But what happens? I'm going to leave this on. I can show you a little better. I could even show you better. No, that doesn't have it either. I'd have to get a short. Anyway, what happens? The element is right up against the screen. And so when you put your hand around it, you're putting that in a little chamber. And so what I did, again, you have to understand that so many of these people, oh boy, do I need my muff now, right? So many of the entertainers come to me, and I'm talking from Jerry Garcia, Peter Frampton, ZZ Top, all of these incredible entertainers over my life come to me. Why me? Because they knew my background, and they also knew that I could do something for them. And so now I'm going to hunt a picture here for you too. I want to play. I don't want to forget it. Here's what we did. Check this out. When you cup it, you're 1/4 of an inch from the element. If it was a Shure, you'd be right here. And if you did that, listen what happens. That's exactly what happens when you cup it. I won't allow you to do that because it's all part of how we build it. Look how thick that is. Then we have that thickness, and it's in its own shock mount. And so all of these things come to fruition. There's no handling noise. Try that on your damn SM58s. And so the entertainers, they went freako when we hit the market years and years ago. And they really like the fact that I listen to them. I go out on their tours. I spend time with them. I go to their sessions when they're practicing rehearsals. And it all started with Joe, but then it went crazy. I saved the career of the Grateful Dead. It was a whole story. It's a piece of history because their sound man wasn't supposed to be out of the state of California. And he went out, he slipped out. Well, they took all the gear and everything back, and they were on tour and didn't have any gear. And they called me. And go to the internet and look up this article, The Night Rock and Roll Sound Was Born. That will tell you everything about Bob Heil in one little article, how it happened. Because then we hit the front page of Billboard. Oh my God, everybody was calling me. And the Who and Frampton, and of course we built the talk box. You probably know about that. This was a thing that Walsh and I came up with so we could do Rocky Mountain Way. But Peter Frampton was in Humble Pie. We did all the concerts Humble Pie ever did. And they pulled him out as a solo act, and I gave him a talk box for Christmas. You know what happened to his career. I read, I hear a lot of his things that he does, and he always thanks me for that. And it's, very blessed because I didn't do anything special. I just did it because I'm a ham and you can do it. I want to show you one thing to end our little session there for you. What band is that?
ZZ Top.
Without beards. That was their first tour. And I did, I don't know how many from there. But yep, they had no beards. In fact, you look at that real close, that PA, it was made we did out of plywood. We didn't even have it covered. We just shot some black paint on it because we had to put that together quickly for them. We've been friends with Billy Gibbons all through. He's such a great guy. He's so cool. He's so calm. He reads so much. Another one, Slash. You would think, he's beautiful, soft-spoken, and knows a lot, but not a lot about everything. But he's great people. But see, I'm blessed that I get to put into some of these guys only because of ham radio teaching me how to do all this nonsense. Any other questions we should have?
Hey, just a real quick one from me. This is Jim, W4IU. Given that you were on all these sound stages with all that loud amplified music and that hearing is so important, how did you preserve your hearing?
I had an angel come to me real early in my career. I don't even know who the guy was, and he disappeared in the crowd, but he said, here, and he gave me not ear plugs, he gave me ear valves. They are little aluminum guys, and they have a diaphragm in them. And up to 90 dB, nothing happens. However, anything over 90 dB, down it goes. And I was very blessed. And not only that, voicing a pipe organ, oh my God. Some of those things are 120 dB when you're in the chamber. So you really have to do it. And we didn't have it then. What I did there is we would wear big muffs and just anything we could get to cover our ears when we weren't there real long. But yeah, thanks for asking. And it's a great question, but you really do have to protect yourself when it comes to hearing.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Were those Lee Sonic ear valves?
Yes.
Yeah. the shooters used to use them all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. I found out much later because he just went away and where'd he get, what is this? I found out much later that's what they were for shooters, but sure probably saved my hearing because I am still here pretty darn good.
One thing you need to add to your repertoire is a conversion kit. I know you can do those things to convert a single sideband CB board back to 10 meters. Do you remember?
You're talking about this right here.
Yeah, and I still wish I had mine.
The interesting part of this, that's a CB board. The interesting part of that was that it was, as we see it and note today, it was the last of the building projects that we could do. Everything else turned into digital stuff and very difficult. And let me get something else here. I was able to get a hold of a couple of those from a store in St. Louis. It was a chain, famous bar. And one of the salesmen that called on them sold me capacitors. And he said, one day, you a ham? And I said, yes. He said, you ought to call Famous Bar. They got about 80 of these CB radios and they have to throw them away because they were 23 channel and they couldn't sell them. And we had a club, there was a 501. So I go over a few miles and went to St. Louis, sat down with a purchasing guy. And he was like ecstatic. He said, oh my God, we were going to throw them in the dumpster, but I could write them off. So he gave me all of those, which went to our club. We had a heck of a radio club, town of 2,000 people and 6 hams, and there were 300 people in our club. That's another show. It was amazing how we did that. But anyway, we all started, that was a project for the club. I figured out how to do it. And then I wrote the book. And one other thing, Evelyn Goggins, who was the president of Icom America at the time, came to me and said, tell me more about this FM thing. Because it was really a big deal. I mean, in it was around 78 to 82, somewhere along in there. It was just crazy. And she said, I want to know more about it because we're getting ready to build a new model. And I think it should have that 10-meter FM in it. The 735. It was the first Icom rig that had FM in it. You can check all that out. And I mean, I didn't have anything to do. I just gave them the idea. And I just, all those kind of things, man, it was so much fun. And it still is. But trying to get some of the new hams, doesn't have to be just kids, but some of the new hams into building. It's why I do Ham Nation. My God, it takes a lot of time, but the pine board thing was amazing. We have over 1,000 people that have built. How do I know that? Antique Electronics Supply. They have all the parts, because when I put it together, I wanted to make sure that you could go somewhere and buy all the parts, because not all of us have junk boxes, and especially the newcomers. And so they can go there and they tell me how many orders they have. Now we're starting all over because we're going to do it with an 807. Yeah. So fun stuff. Fun
Hey,
stuff.
Bob.
You've done so many things, and I'm curious, over the next 30 years, what's still in your bucket list to do, Bob? And something that won't require 50 NDAs.
Oh, I don't know. I just, who knows what happens here? I just get an idea and do it. As I said, my next project is, well, this guy right here, this dude right here. I finally got the transformer the other day. That's going to end up being an 807, 50 watt final. That's at 750 50-volt transformer. Oh boy, do I get called down on that. Oh my God. You know, this hobby's full of doom and gloomers. And, oh, you're going to kill somebody. You're going to electrocute somebody. No, we don't. Because we always start each session with respecting the high voltage. You and I live through it. You just have to understand, keep your finger where it's not supposed to be. And again, teaching people how to do things. But I don't know, I don't know where we go from there. I wake up, like Sarah says, I wake up in a different world every day thinking about stuff. But I'm really having fun, and I'm having more fun. This is a new studio. This used to be a 4-car garage. Well, it's 2-car, and it had lifts. I had Thunderbirds in here. And I got rid of all that about 2006, and this has kind of been empty. But there are no parallel walls in this building. God was with me when we built it back in about 2002. I don't know why I did it, but boy, I know now, because what ended up was my organ. And I can't tell you how good this room sounds. And I can do this right here, right in front of me. That's what I got. And
Wow.
And the speakers for all of that happen to be up over my head. There's 10 speakers and a couple of subwoofers. And
so Bob, I've heard you do it for another club. I hate to put you on the spot, but would you play the organ for us a little bit?
Oh, you don't ever ask me about that, because I love to play for people, because very few people have really experienced, and I really mean experienced, a theater organ. I can do that for you, and I'd be happy to do it. Let me.
Which theater organ do you have, Bob?
Well, this is a very special one. I, of course, have played Wurlitzer's and Robert Morton's. Along about 15 years ago, George Wright, if you know who that was, he's the father of, he was the greatest. I was very blessed to be able to take some tutoring from him. But his protege, Lynn Larson, got together with Alan. And what they did is they went around the world, actually. Lynn had played all these great theater organs, and he liked the trumpet out of San Francisco. He liked the flute out of this. He liked the strings in France. And they went around to all these different ones. He picked out 24 of them, and they sampled them. And what you're going to hear is a sampling, and it is absolutely unbelievable. I played, for the first time, I played one, it's been about 12 years ago. And we went to a dealer in St. Louis that just had one of the new ones. And while I got lost in it, I was playing for about 2 hours. And the guy came up to me and he said, "You going to be home tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, yeah." "Why?" He said, "Well, your wife just bought this organ and we want to deliver it." So Sarah bought it for me. Well, we've traded it into a little better one. They came up with something else, but it just is really amazing. But yeah, I'll fire some things up here. Let me see. Gotta make sure. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Here we go. Let me get a camera around here. Get this over here. I think that'll be okay. All right. I will need to check a level. That's always a problem. It won't be the greatest because I don't have everything all turned on, but enough. This thing has all kinds of things in it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
How are you? Like a real piper, and it has a Steinway piano. Of course, that's sampled, isn't not an electronic piano. And all kinds of things. The theater organ had glockenspiel, has xylophones, has vibraharmonie, so on and so on. But you put it all together and wow, it's just amazing what happens. Okay, there we go.
Bravo.
Have you ever thought of playing at a pizza place, Bob?
Well, that's still alive, isn't it? Pizza joints. Yeah, it's still alive. I try to play every day. I come into here to play, half hour. I'm here for a couple hours. So I'm very, very blessed to have all of my toys in one room now. And I have a wonderful wife that supports all of this, as well as she owns the company and keeps that thing going like crazy. So we're very, very happy and we're blessed. And I love that ham radio is growing, and it's growing in a different division and a whole different direction than a lot of us were there, but that's okay.
Can I ask you two quick questions, Bob?
Sure.
Have you ever had the chance to play the theater organ in the Fox here in Atlanta? That's one.
I have not. I was at the Fox in St. Louis. Golly, I was there for 10 years on and off. But yeah, that's a marvelous instrument.
It definitely is. The other thing is, do you have an email address you'd be willing to let us if we wanted to contact you directly?
Oh yeah. Well, what would you think it would be? How about K9EID at ARRL?
That seems like it could be a good one, but it's always good to check.
Have you ever been to my QRZ page?
I don't know that I have.
You need to do that because there's information, especially about that Mosley receiver. That's really something special. And that's another program I'm putting together. I have met some real cool icons in my day. And I have some videos of some of them, and I'm trying to work it out to get, 10 or so minutes from some of them. And we're talking about John Clemens that designed that. He was an aerospace engineer at McDonnell before it was McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis. He designed that receiver, W0BD. And I became a very good friend of his late in his life. And the story is incredible. And I have some video of him. I have another guy, has nothing to do with all of that, but this guy's 107, WD4KCG. And I was very blessed to spend some time and have some great videos of him telling me the story of how he was chosen by a general to do something he didn't know what he was doing. He said, this is very secret. You got to go put up a system on this island so that when I need, I can talk to China, Japan, and Washington, D.C. all at the same time. He was the guy that had to do it at night and in secret. And this is the guy that built Iwo Jima's communication system. And I'll tell you what, you sit and listen to that. Oh my gosh, he's still on the air. I mean, he's 107 and just kicking ass. I love it. But there's all kinds of things. Wes Shum was another one. I was asked to play for the 100th birthday party of Leo Myerson. And you know, it is, how does this all happen to one little freak? But it did, it does, and I continue to share it with everybody. This stuff needs to be shared. There's so much going on in ham radio underneath all of us.
Hey, Mr. Bob. I recently been using your Heil headset for schoolwork, and my dad sent you some pictures of me using it for schoolwork.
Absolutely. And we're going to put that up. I think they got it planned for tomorrow night. If not, it'll come around. Absolutely. I need to have more pictures.
Hey, Bob, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, we'll definitely send you some more pictures, Bob Heil.
Well, hey, congratulations on what you're doing. You take me back many, many years, because when I was your age, I was just totally engrossed with ham radio. And I want to tell you how cool you are, buddy. Keep it up.
Thanks. Oh, have a great night and a great broadcast.
73.
Hey, looky there. Hey, nobody.
I got a question for you.
She's better looking than you are.
I know.
I want that bass behind you on the wall there.
Hey, Bob, I don't know how much they told you about this, but this club was the first Hamvention of the Year radio club in 2010.
That's right.
And I don't, like I said, I didn't know if you knew that or not, or we got a lot going on, and we've got some great leaders in our club, and I just thought you should know that we were the first year they ever had a club of the year.
Yeah, you haven't been on Ham Nation, the club, right?
That's correct. We have not. I've seen that, and I keep thinking we ought to get somebody to send something in.
Yeah. See this here? This is a list of clubs that I think about, and you guys are on there because we need to get you on there. And the reason I'm doing that is, number one, it kind of builds up all of the people in your club, makes them feel good. But secondly, there's a lot of clubs that they really don't know how to make it happen, and they'll get ideas from you guys, and that's why I'm doing it. It's called Club Spotlight. You just need to send me an email, and we'll talk back and forth and get some pictures. And boy, if you got pictures, oh my goodness, with all those people, that's cool. All right.
Hey, Bob, is that a Wurlitzer organ you were playing?
No, that's an Allen. But as I said, it's a sampled Wurlitzer.
Oh.
It went all around the world, actually, and sampled various sounds, and the flute and the brass trumpet and the piano, all of that stuff. They sampled it, and it's playing through these speakers up above me. You really can't see them, but they're up there. We designed this room. The walls are not parallel, and the ceiling, it starts off at 19 feet and comes down to 17 feet. And see that goes into the whole situation of again, phasing. Because if you have a square room and the audio goes out of my mouth and hits that wall, it's going to come straight back to me. Out of phase, because if you didn't have the word phase, what would be the word to tell you that? It would be time. Time is phase. Well, in the time that would come and come back, it would cancel. And it sounds really weird. This way, in this room, every wall is not parallel. So when the sound comes out of those speakers and hits that wall, it goes somewhere else. It doesn't come back to you. And it's really really quite neat. If you think about it, you go to movie theaters, they're not square boxes. They got all kinds of weird things and the floor slanted. Why? Because of what I just told you. And I don't know why doesn't everybody know that? I don't know. Everybody should know some of these fun things. But yeah, it's a wonderful little room and I enjoy it. But the Allen is pretty super to me. Pretty super.
So Bob, along those same lines regarding phasing, I don't know if you know the story of Vandersteen speakers, but when they first started making them, the principal engineer was trying to mimic the sound he kept hearing at the local symphony, not realizing that he was sitting in a null. So it wasn't until somebody else came along and said, hey, move a couple of seats and you'll hear something very different, that their product line took off.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it happens. You have to pay attention. Yeah, have to pay attention. Yeah, there's just so much in this hobby, and the youngsters coming up have so much in front of them. And I really applaud you as a club to help these people and guide them. Of course, let's face facts. A lot of it has to do with the parents. So you got to have a little direction. And my parents were the greatest in the world to me, but they weren't into electronics. My mother played the piano a little bit, but man, they would back me doing anything. They bought me a B3 Hammond when I was 12 years old. That's in 1952. Let me tell you, that was a lot of money, and they weren't wealthy people. But my mom and dad thought I should have it because I had been playing accordion. And I ripped off into that B3, and 2 years later, I become a professional. I was playing in a restaurant at the age of 14 and making quite a bit of money as a kid. But there again, it was all about the love of the thing. And then a year later, I got into ham radio, and you know the rest of that story. Good grief.
Did the restaurant sell pizza?
Do what?
Maybe, did it sell pizza? Maybe you've already played at a pizza joint.
No, they were 4-star dinner houses, you know, with dinner, you know, with tablecloths and waiters playing in tuxedos and stuff like that. And it was good stuff. Although I know some of my friends played back in the 70s. Man, that was a big deal. There's still a few of them running around of the pizza places, and they have some marvelous productions going on with them.
Do you still have the B?
Oh, no. Sometimes I wish I would have kept it, but I sold it to some rock band because I probably sold 1,000 B3s in my career. I became a Hammond organ dealer in 1966, right when it was starting to move, the rock scene. And I was the first guy to cut one in half so it would be lighter and you could carry it around. And it all hit the fan then. Everybody was coming to me, and we were rebuilding them. I've built 3 manual B3s and all kinds of stuff. Again, the ham radio in me, man, it was just fun to do, and still doing it, making things happen.
Very cool. Hey, well, Bob, thank you so very much for giving us all this info and your thought process and attention to listening. Before we go, I want to go ahead and just show you what we will be sending you. It's just a small token of our appreciation for the awesome presentation that you've given us tonight. It's a certificate from the North Fulton Amateur Radio League.
Right.
Thanking you for your presentation tonight, the importance of speak articulation. Not that I did that very well right now.
Yep.
But we greatly appreciate it, and I came away with a boatload of notes, and I'm sure everybody else did too.
Well, one thing about it, don't be shy. Call me, send me an email, whatever. Sometimes I get a couple of hundred a day, and I try to get through all of them. And I'm here for you, and I really enjoy these. And we'll come back and pick on a subject and really make it happen. And last but not least, I was incredibly blessed. Our company became the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I thought that was really something 10 years ago, and it was. We're still there. We're the only manufacturer. There's all kinds of artists there. But you would think that some of the big name microphone companies, they said no. I said, why not? Why me? I'm just a little guy. They said, yes, but you did something that made a difference. I built the talk box. I built the first quadraphonic sound system, the only quad system for quadrophenia, and on and on and on. And they said, that's why we're in a lot of those products are there in the Rock Hall. But the thing that really, really shook me up, and I mean, it was very emotional, was a couple of years ago, I was given a doctorate degree at Mizzou and for music and technology, and I barely made it through high school. And it's one of these things that you don't know why, but it just happens. Just put things together, and they gave me a wonderful, wonderful day. But that's okay. We'll make it happen from there out. Listen, thanks everybody. I went way over my time, I guess, but I appreciate you putting up with all this nonsense. Let's do it again. There's so much to talk about. So much.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Thank you, Dr. Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Heil, thank you so very much.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Definitely do it again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Great meeting tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
Indeed. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.